Call to order, councillors. Good morning and welcome everyone, community members, visitors, guests, local media, to the July 2019 Council meeting. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, please understand that this is an open meeting of council for the public to observe council in the decision-making process. Please, as a courtesy to others, please could we check all mobile phones and devices are turned to silent. And our code of meeting practice includes live streaming, and I need to inform all present that your attendance at this meeting is taken as consent to the possibility that your image and or voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public via our live stream. Also, be aware, according to Council's Code of Meeting Practice, in regard to any other audio or visual recordings of the meeting, prior permission must be sought prior to the meeting, and the decision to allow must be a unanimous decision of council or committee. For people in the gallery to follow the agenda, the recommendations before council will be displayed on the screens. Everyone is welcome to join us for morning tea, which will be approximately 10:30 a.m. or earlier. Welcome councillors, General Manager, Directors Fish and Mitchell, any staff in the chambers, and also the viewing public. We will start with the opening prayer. Dear Lord, help us in our deliberations today so that our decisions will be for the greater good for the whole of the Kempsey Shire. Amen. Amen. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Dunghutti people. We'll move to apologies and applications for leave of absence by councillors. We have one, Councillor, or the Mayor Liz Campbell.
Second that.
All in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Confirmation of minutes.
Move that way.
Do we have a seconder? Move Councillor McGinn.
No, I wasn't here. Second that.
Seconded Councillor Saul.
I'd like to move
Hall.
an amendment, Mr Chair.
The amendment is?
Amendment as I've sent to Mr Thorogood, he might want to put it up. On page 12, replace the amendment ruled out of order with an amendment was moved by Councillor Horval to replace section 9 of the motion, a Kempsey Shire Airport...
Ask a procedural
One
motion.
second.
Could I finish reading, please?
Thank you.
A Kempsey Shire Airport en route supplement of Australia, URSA, be considered by a stakeholder group, including community representatives, and furnish a report to August Council, with the Council then deciding on whether to put the proposed URSA on display for 28 days for community input. The Mayor ruled the amendment out of order, stating amendments are slight changes. That's my amendment.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Morris.
Can I ask a question?
I'll let
Doesn't our code of meeting practice now, any minutes changes have to be in a week prior or something? So isn't this out of order?
I'll ask the gentleman.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor.
Matt Ashley.
We encourage it, and certainly in the Code of Meeting Practice it asks for those things to occur, but it still doesn't stop the council from still amending them on the floor.
Okay, thank you for that.
Can I speak to the
Yes,
motion?
sure can.
Thank you. I'll speak to the amendment. Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm moving this because this is what people on the video and the YouTube have seen, that the amendment was ruled out of order by the Mayor saying amendments are slight changes. I'd like to make clear that in 10.11 of the Code of Meeting Practice, amendment must be on the topic. It cannot, and it doesn't say that it's out of order if it has slight changes. So I'm suggesting that we put that in to show that we do have proper amendments being moved, and for some reason the amendment was ruled out of order, and the reason is amendments are slight changes. I'd just like to remind you that the amendment moved by Councillor Baxter last week, which was against his original motion, which he replaced, to have a amendment to the KLEP and the CDP for Crescent Head about accommodation, worthwhile, and he replaced that with an amendment that said we will wait until the state government decides to do things. That could be considered more than a slight amendment, but it was still on the topic, and that's what 10.11 says. If it's on the topic, and point 9 of the motion in question at the meeting was about the Ursa, and I had an action that I thought would satisfy the community problems with the Ursa as suggested. The Ursa will be further developed according to Director Mitchell, but for me, that part of the meeting which people have seen should be in the minutes, and that's why I'm moving this amendment. I hope you support it.
Can I just ask a question? We haven't had our declaration of interest yet, have we? Well, I just would have thought this is touching on a topic that has a declared conflict of interest usually.
Could I just get the General Manager to comment on that?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, our practice has been to put in amendments that have been moved and lost. We haven't had the practice of putting in those that have been ruled out of order. There's nothing in our code of meeting practice so that we would stop putting something like this in, as it does reflect actually what occurred. It was just that it was ruled out of order, so yeah, it really is up to you as a group of councillors.
Councillor Baxter?
Could I just ask Councillor Horville, so you're saying you want this put in the minutes because that's what's on the tape?
That's what's recorded, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Is there any other debate?
It's not so much debate, it's more a question
Sure.
to the General Manager. Would it be reasonable to expect that whenever an amendment or a motion is ruled out of order, whether it be by the General Manager or by the Mayor, that the reason be recorded in the minutes as to why it was ruled out of order? Because at the moment, the Code of Meeting, in this case, I believe it was recorded in the minutes that the motion was moved, but it was ruled out of order. But it was simply stated that it was ruled out of order with no reason for it to be having been ruled out of order. So would it not be reasonable for the reason for it to be ruled out of order to be recorded in the minutes? And would that facilitate a change, or would that require a change to our Code of Meeting practice?
I'd have to look into all of that. Often mayors and chairpersons of committees will rule something out of order without actually giving reasons. So they'll just rule it out of order. So, yeah, to record what is out of order and not out of order makes it a bit difficult when no reasons are actually given. What we can look like I said with this, it's from my point of view, with this you'll set a standard that says if something is ruled out of order, an amendment or something is ruled out of order, we actually make sure we do record what it was so that people understand that's the motion and then it was actually ruled out of order. People can actually see that for themselves. I'd have to look into putting in the reasons a little bit more.
It's the same reason to me that if something's ruled out of order, there must be a reason for that. And purely for the education purposes for the person that made the amendment, they should know. And it would be good for the community to know why it was ruled out of order.
Councillor McGinn?
When we make policy on the run, it sometimes has unintended consequences. So I'm suggesting if we're going to start making a precedent here, we may find that in future, every time someone has their own little item they wish to politicise, they're going to move an amendment, want something recorded, then it's going to come back over and over again. Then the reason's going to have to be given as to why something's been called out of order. It really could open up a can of worms. So I am just simply stating, not necessarily over this item that Councillor Horville is suggesting needs to be recorded in the minutes. I'll let the councillors consider whether that's appropriate or not. But the discussion that we're having about actually changing our Code of Meeting practice for the future is fraught with danger. So I'm just making that point.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Question you can't speak against.
No, Mr. Chair.
Has to be a question.
Could I ask a question through to the General Manager?
Sure.
And it's in relation to what is the reasoning for minute taking at our council meeting? What is the main reason?
To record and put on the public record the decisions that the council actually made.
Not what goes towards the
Councillor.
decision or the actual decision?
It's
not
the
debating about
decisions, and part of that decision-making process is what decisions were made in getting to that final decision. So that's why we record amendments, we record if they were won or if they were lost, those sorts of things. So putting something like this in isn't an issue from recording what actually occurred, so people can actually see that sequence of actually events. What we need to be careful of is if there is an amendment that was ruled out of order by the mayor or the chairperson of a committee, that we don't want to be setting a situation where we automatically put that in because someone might move that such and such a councillor is an idiot or something like that. And it's a pretty extreme example, but it's to say we still need the ability to not put something in that is derogatory, defamatory, or something like that.
So the status quo would be fine to us?
Could I clarify a point made?
Yeah,
by
sure, you'll
Councillor
close
McGinn,
debate with
please?
that. Yeah.
She made the point about that we were required to put in the amendments earlier. I put this amendment in earlier to Manager Thorogood. He wrote back to me saying that if they can't anything which was inappropriate, defamatory or otherwise out of order. Well, I don't think it was inappropriate. I defamed no one, and I don't think it was out of order. So that's why I put it up. It's just to finish explaining,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. We are the councillors decide what's in the minutes, and it's not staff to tell us that we can and cannot put things in there. But that they can certainly advise us on what we can do, but we make the final decision through our democratic process.
I put the amendment. All in favour? All against? Okay, I'll use my casting vote for. It becomes the motion. All in favour?
Oh, what's the motion now?
So the amendment becomes the motion,
Which is the minutes.
which is the minutes including that.
Yes.
So all in favour?
Sorry.
So I use my casting vote to uphold the amendment,
Oh, I see.
and now it becomes the motion. So all in favour of the
So now we're
motion?
endorsing the
The minutes. All against? That's carried.
Just get that right. Two councillors who voted against the minutes.
Yes.
I voted for the amendment because I agree with the amendment, but I voted against the minutes because I disagree with the minutes.
Okay, all right. We'll make sure you're right.
Disclosure of interest. Councillor Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a disclosure of interest on item number 9.1, Kempsey Cinema project, and I declare a non-pecuniary insignificant conflict for the reason that I met with Majestic CEO Kieran Dell to discuss cinema promotions.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Patterson?
I have a pecuniary non-significant interest in the Kempsey Cinema site, which is 9.5. I've given the paperwork to Daniel, and it's in relation to that I have done demolition work on that site for O'Donnell and Hanlon.
So what was the declaration again?
Pecuniary non-significant.
You can't have a pecuniary non-significant. It's either pecuniary or
Well,
it's...
I haven't got the paperwork in front of me right now. I gave it to him. Yeah.
So it's a pecuniary interest.
Pecuniary interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a declaration for items 7.1, which is a pecuniary significant interest, and I will leave the chamber as it deals with my performance review process.
Councillor Hall?
I'm just getting ready for the next item.
No
Sorry.
worries. Okay. We'll move to item number 6, items passed by exception.
Move that way with the exception of 9.2 and 9.5.
No worries. So we moved Councillor Morris, seconded Councillor McGinn, and we'd like to remove 9.2. 9.5 automatically comes out. That's all. Any questions?
Yes, I have some questions.
Sure.
On the Organisational Transformation 9.4, and on the Attachment 1 Transformation Plan Status Update. I have some questions, so I'm going there now. Or trying to go there. On page 2 of the transformation plan, second item, I'll show my ignorance here. I don't know what establish, invest to save bank. Could someone tell me what that is, please? It's on page 2.5.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair. What it is the idea of that is where you create savings that are clearly identifiable within the budget through some initiative. You actually take those savings and basically bank them, and you use those to actually put into future continuous improvement programs. So that's the general idea. So you invest that into future savings.
So it's an account entrance somewhere?
Yeah, basically it would just be something we hold in our finance information. It's not actually a separate bank account. It's actually just a line item. We'd actually hold that money in there.
Wasn't the objective just to offset the wins and the costs? It wasn't really a financial account, was it?
My understanding, like I said, I wasn't here when LKSQ went through this with the councillors in detail, but certainly my understanding, and Mr. Mitchell might want to comment a bit further, my understanding of this is that the idea is, if you save X, thousands of dollars through this particular initiative, you put that into this line item, and you can then use that to invest into other initiatives, because sometimes you've got to spend money to save money, so that actually allows you to fund some of those other initiatives in the future. I don't know if Mr. Mitchell wants to add any of that.
It's offsetting redundancies.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. An example of that, Councillor Horville, will be, you may recall, we had the street lighting paper came to council that was going to deliver some savings, and I think part of the resolution on that particular item was that those savings would then be banked to fund future energy efficiency projects. That's a similar concept to what this item that was proposed by LKSQ as part of their report. As the General Manager mentioned, I wasn't there when that recommendation was made. The way we're dealing with that practically is actually looking at any of these items on a case-by-case basis and through effectively like a business case for each item.
Okay. Thank you. My other question's on page 4, if I may. It's talking at 4.4 on page 4, establish the customer front end, and it talks about the website redevelopment project. I applaud the idea, but how's that going, and what is the timeline to update the website? Because we've still got an NBN plan rolled out, map from 2016 on it.
Yeah, the progress of that, and again, Mr. Mitchell might have a bit more detail than I do, but we've actually appointed the company, we've actually picked the platform we're actually going to be using, and we're actually working with an external company in terms of the actual architecture of that and working through the content. We're reviewing our current content to see what's used and what's not used, and there's literally thousands and thousands of pages, so there'll be a small number of those which will be kept and a whole heap of stuff will be rolled off. So it's still some months away before we actually go live.
Thank you. And my other question is on culture check-in results summary on the attachment 9.4.2. Yeah, just to make clear, the culture check-in, is that on a scale of 1 to 10? It's not, I think it was, but is that what it was?
That's correct.
Okay. So the improvement status is shown by the green items, and they've all improved, which is exactly what should be happening. We've still got a way to go, and would we be aiming for a score with 7s at least in every category, Mr. General Manager? Would that be a target, or you're trying to get to 10?
Look, I'd love to get to 10. However, it's what we've kept on saying is that we've continually used the analogy of a marathon. We're on a marathon. We're probably still only about 18k into that. We have got a long way to go still, and this reflects, the results in this reflect a lot of really positive progress. But as an organisation, we've still got a way to go, and if we can get up into the 7s and 8s and 10s in those areas, that would be quite exceptional, particularly when it actually is coming from a staff self-reporting view, because you'll always get some staff that do that. We've got to work out whether we use this same methodology in another 2 years, or we actually go to something that's measuring some other things as well. So we haven't made a final decision on that at this point. Whether Steve, you want to say something else?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I think the only thing I would add to that is that a lot of the projects that are in the process of being delivered at the moment in relation to our corporate business system, things like the internet project, those sorts of longer length projects will take some time to deliver the improvements from an employee perspective. So they're setting the foundations for that. But because at the time of doing this survey back in April, I think it was on March, April, those projects hadn't commenced or were only in their early stages, the benefits of those from a staff perspective wouldn't be obviously reflected in these results either. So we're on a longer term journey in relation to this, and so progressively we would like to think that those scores would get better as these projects are delivered.
And how often do you do this culture check-in with staff? Is it monthly or 6 monthly?
No, it's 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but any sort of culture change it's not something that happens on a monthly sort of basis. It is actually a longer term thing. So this was the survey that was done in 2017. That as a group of councillors actually had organised. We redid it in March this year.
So every 2 years, you're not going to do it in 12 months?
We won't do it in 12 months. No, it's too soon. You've actually got to allow time for that culture to actually change. So 18 months to 2 years would be the soonest you do it.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Morris.
Just a quick question in relation to the fund that was brought up and mentioned. How will that be reported to council? Because it would be good if it could be reported as part of the QBR with the current balance and what the input, what the income or what the proceeds were that were going in and what the proceeds were that were coming out.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell said we haven't actually established the bank. What we're doing, we're actually not looking to do it. We're actually dealing with matters on a case-by-case basis and actually monitoring those to see are they justified or aren't they justified. Setting up something like that on a long-term basis, I haven't seen it work anywhere, personally. It takes a lot to actually do it. There's a lot of initiatives you do that don't actually save real dollars. It actually saves people's time, which are then invested in other areas. So we're not looking at actually setting this up formally as a bank. We will just deal with matters on a case-by-case basis as indicated in that report.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the same report, 9.4, page 17. First of all, before my question, Chair, I'd just like to say one thing.
Question, please.
Well, including in the question is where it says there provides a roadmap to improving the council's financial position to be financially sustainable in the longer term. And I'd like to compliment the staff for getting us on that track. I'd simply like to ask the staff the question, would you have a date in mind when the council might get into the black? I know we've been running in the red for countless years. Mm-hmm. Is there
I think our current projections through you, Mr. Chair, are 4 or 5 years, I think it is, from the current projections before we get to that position. And that is based on a whole range of assumptions and things to actually occur in terms of savings, future rate rises, a whole swag of things actually happening. So, yes, there's a lot of assumptions built into that.
Okay. Well, that's a goal. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Councillor Morris.
With those assumptions, what is the assumed quantum of rate increase to achieve that?
Yeah, I can't recall the exact figure off the top of my head or how many years it was over, but from memory, it's somewhere around 20 to 22%, I think, including the rate peg. and it might have been over 2 or 3 years. I can't recall the exact details.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. There were a couple of scenarios that were included as part of the long-term financial plan. One assumed a special rate variation, a one-off in 1 year, and the other one was progressively over 3 years. I think it was actually slightly higher than that, but I'd need to actually double-check in terms of the exact percentages that equated to. But it is in the long-term financial plan that was adopted last meeting, and it's on the website.
Okay, so we have a recommendation that 9.3, 9.4, 9.6, 9.7, 11.1 be adopted. All in favour? That's carried. We will now move to 7.1.
I'd like to move that, Mr. Chair, with one slight amendment.
Sure, won't be. It's a Mayoral minute. So
Oh,
I
of
move
course,
it.
well, the mayor's not here, so
I move it as
you will move it. Okay,
the chair.
thank you. Thank you.
I don't need a seconder.
Without moving an amendment, could I suggest a very
Sure.
slight amendment? In point 3 of the recommendation, change the bit which says that all councillors be provided with an opportunity for input, change it to with appropriate documentation for input and feedback. So they can actually see, not just say we want input, but actually have the documents in front of them so they can write things to the mayor about the review.
I think that's common practice already. No, it's not.
Well, I'm just making sure it happened by
The
putting it in
performance
there.
document is only available normally to,
But appropriate
the panel.
documentation.
yeah. But everybody has input on that. Sorry, I'm a bit debating it, but it's
How
just
do we
that
have
we're,
input if we don't know what the document's asking?
I
So
don't know the
I'm just
legalities
suggesting
behind
that
all
be
this.
amended.
I'll have to ask for clarification because it's a legal document as well.
Mr. Chair, doesn't an opportunity for input imply that the information will be given out so that there will be an opportunity to input? Otherwise, how can you input? I think
And don't we all have an opportunity to input by being on the panel at whatever given stage as well?
Just 1 second. Councillor Hovell, are you asking for the actual the KPIs or for the actual document?
Just the KPIs, so they can
Just the
look at
KPIs,
them
okay.
and say, this is what they think about each particular area.
So do we need to amend it? Or can that just
And by saying appropriate, it's not
that can be just given?
getting out of line with
Yeah.
what shouldn't be provided.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the staff have said that will be provided. I'm not sure if we still need an amendment, but
Well, you
it's up
can
to.
accept it as the
Yeah.
mover.
I actually won't accept it. The only reason I won't is because it's not actually my Mayoral minute. I'm putting this up on behalf of the mayor, and I'm happy with the staff saying that they will provide those KPIs. But you can put it as an amendment, and we can vote on that if you like.
Still need an amendment to it.
Okay. We will just say there that the Mayoral minute, which is from the mayor, obviously says that she will arrange for all councillors to receive a copy of the General Manager's performance agreement and to have the opportunity to provide comments to me in the lead up for the review. So that, I think, covers it. And just to remind everybody that I've been on that performance review for 7 years, and there's only been 1 or 2 times that anybody's put any input in. So if we want to put input in.
I second that suggestion.
Because it's very handy. Any debate? No? So, okay, so we put the motion. All in favour? All against? That's carried. If we can grab the General Manager, please. So we will move, there's no reports of committees, so we'll move to 9.1 Planning Proposal, Rock Central. Moved Councillor Morris, seconded Councillor Patterson. Councillor Morris, would you like to speak?
No, I haven't really got any comments, but I'm surprised it's not in a consensus motion because it's a fairly straightforward issue
I
that
think it's just
is
a
of no
planning,
debate.
just a planning thing. Okay, no debate. I put the motion. All in favour? Aye. That's carried. 9.2,
Move that way.
proposed road closure intersection of South West Shocks Road and Riverside Drive. It's moved Councillor Saul, seconded Councillor Patterson. Councillor Saul?
No discussions.
It was removed, so Councillor Morris?
I just had some questions, and I've had to put some questions to the General Manager the day after the agenda came out. I've got some concerns in as much as I believe if we're looking at selling land, we should be putting it on public exhibition prior to agreeing to sell the land in case there is something that comes up in that period of public exhibition. So whilst I've got no objection to it in principle, but I've also got a few other questions, and those questions are, what is the area of the parcel of land in question? What is the zoning of the land immediately to the south of that parcel?
Mr Fish may be able to answer that last question immediately to the south. That's the block you're talking about where the house is actually
Yes.
on. I understand the house is actually on residential land. The block that's being sold off is rural,
Yeah.
is my understanding.
There was a suggestion in the answer to the questions that I had from the General Manager that that Council would encourage the two blocks to be amalgamated. If the two blocks were to be amalgamated, would that affect the zoning of the parcel of land? Being amalgamated, would they adopt the zoning of the residential for both parcels?
Through the chair, I don't have the exact area of the land. Just looking at the scaling of the map that's provided in the attachment, the area of the land is probably of the order of 800 square metres at an assumption. In terms of the zoning, so as the General Manager suggested, the zoning of the parcel of land that's identified in this report is a rural zoning, whereas the block immediately to the south is obviously based on having a zoning based on them having housing. To change the zoning of the land would require a planning proposal to occur, so we'd need to seek some advice in terms of consolidation of it. If that's not possible due to the difference in zonings, then obviously that process wouldn't occur, but it's obviously preferable that it be as one lot rather than multiple.
I'll just add a bit further to that. We did provide a response to Councillor Morris, as he indicated, and in that we actually said, we clarified the issue about the zone and the need for the planning proposal. We also highlighted that there's the block itself is actually flood affected. There's also a water main that bisects that section, which would actually have an easement over it, which would affect any sort of future development on there as well. And we also looked at it from a commercial perspective. Is there opportunity for council to actually sell it? There realistically is no other purchaser for that, so it was deemed most appropriate to put it through this process.
The only other question...
Sorry, just 1 second. Director Fish?
Through the chair, I just wanted to add one further thing in terms of the, the suggestion of public exhibition. The proposal was notified, so there certainly has been opportunity for the public to comment on the proposal, and it was advertised in a local newspaper and notice provided to the adjoining landowners.
Councillor Morris?
Given that it has been advertised, even though that's not mentioned in the report, and the other details that I feel are pertinent in the consideration of this report were also not included in the report, I can see little option but to proceed as it is. But it would be nice to have a full and accurate details within a report so we can make appropriate judgments.
Councillor Morris? Yeah. Councillor Hall?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, please, on 3B of the motion. It gives a delegation authority to the General Manager to sign a Section 88B instrument to create an easement for water supply. What easement, what water supply is needed to go through that land?
There's an existing water supply through there.
There is council's already there, so
That's correct.
So you actually
No,
created an easement.
protecting our asset.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't realise that.
Councillor Saul?
I'll speak to close debate if I speak.
Sure. Well, you open it too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think it's a very minor matter. I think that once this land is sold and funds put back in the roads budget, it'll be positive for the community all round. Every dollar in our roads fund is vital to have our roads upgraded and maintained. So I'll be voting for the motion.
Any debate? I put the motion. All in favour? Aye. That's carried. 9.5 Kempsey Cinema Project. Moved Councillor McGinn. Seconded Councillor Shields.
Some questions, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I'll get this to work properly. In the actual voluntary planning agreement, in 3.4, it states that council may waive clauses 3.3.1 and 3.3.3. Has either of those sections been waived?
We'll take that on notice.
Okay, thank you. Has an independent quantity surveyor been appointed?
There's been no requirement for us to do that at this point in time. We have had our auditors appointed to actually audit these books at the end of the process as required by the deed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the independent quantity surveyor is at our option, at council's option, as to whether they feel the need to have that independent quantity surveyor. As the General Manager's noted, we have already been in discussions with our auditor to do the audit at the end of the project, which is a requirement under the Commonwealth funding deed. We've provided some information that the developer has provided to us, including their independent quantity surveyor that they've engaged rather than council's engaged. They've been satisfied with the information that's been provided today, so at this stage there's no requirement for us to have that QS done.
Further question, Mr. General Manager, or through you, Mr. Chair, maybe to Director Fish, or Director Mitchell, whoever's got the answer. What sort of costs would be involved in having a quantity surveyor appointed?
That'd probably be in the tens of thousands potentially, or up to 10,000, depending on the extent of the work you're actually getting to do. And if they're just simply checking some progress invoices and things like that, it probably wouldn't be a lot. But if you had them appointed for the entire project, then yeah, it really depends on their role and the extent of the work you're asking them to do. So.
Can I just point of order, Mr. Chair? Should we've moved in second? Should I have opened the debate or?
No, you can ask
No,
questions.
you can ask questions first.
As long as we're not debating.
So in 2A of the background part, which talks about the resolution on the 17th of April 2018, in 2A it talks about any other related development consent for the construction of the cinema. Just to be sure and make it clear, I think I know the answer. Have there been any other DAs submitted that were given consent or were being considered for consent to other related activities at the Kempsey Cinema?
Mr. Fish?
Through the chair, I'm not personally aware of anything, but we could take that on notice and check whether that's the case or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Again, we'll follow up, but I'm not aware of anything that's actually related to the construction of the cinema.
I'd like to move an amendment, Mr. Chair.
The amendment is?
Right. Council notes the report and progress. Council should enact provisions of the VPA to obtain a review by an independent quantity surveyor with a report to August Council on the outcome. That's the motion or the amendment. I need a seconder.
Do we have a seconder?
I'd like to speak to it.
That has
Explain it.
lapsed
That's,
due to no seconder.
Got a question.
Any other questions? Yeah, sorry, Councillor Morris.
Mr Chair, mine's not a question, mine's an amendment. My
Okay.
amendment is that Council note the presentation by Mr Kieran Dell of Majestic Cinemas as at the public forum on the 15th of July, particularly the anticipated opening date of the cinema in mid-November. 2, the intention to commence recruitment for staff to manage the cinema as of the 7th of September. Or to work at, sorry, to operate the cinema.
I'll second that. If
They were 2 points that he made mention last night that would be of interest to the community, and the best way to get them out to the community would be to have them in this this resolution.
Just repeat that, please.
I haven't got it written down. That Council note the presentation of Mr Kieran Dell of Majestic Cinemas at the public forum on the 15th of July 2019, comma, particularly in relation to A, the anticipated opening of the cinema in mid-November, and B, the intention to commence recruitment for the operation of the cinema as of the 7th of September 2019.
May I ask a
Just
question?
1 second. Do we have a seconder?
Yes, I have a I seconded
Sure.
that. Also have
So we
another
have a
question if I
So we
may.
have a question.
But Councillor Shields was before me.
I haven't spoken to my motion, which was moved in the
I
beginning.
put a question in way before any of this.
Okay. So we'll.
Mr Chair, could I make a procedural motion that Councillor McGinn,
Sure.
who you heard first?
I'll pay that anyway. You speak to your motion.
Because I'm going to speak against the amendment.
Okay, so you'll reserve the right to speak to the motion. So you're going to speak against the amendment. So it has to be spoken for. So you either speak to your original motion, or you wait until somebody's
Okay.
spoken
Mine
for.
is a question on the original motion. We're in questions and then the amendment.
So we're talking about the amendment now. That's correct.
Amendment's been moved, so it should be.
So,
the
yes.
amendment is considered.
My
So
question
Councillor
is
Hall-
regarding the amendment.
Okay, question?
Through you, Mr Chair, to the General Manager, would it be appropriate for us to be commenting on public dates without actually speaking to Gowings, who are actually building the cinema? I understand, yes, Kieran Dell spoke in the public forum, and that's available obviously to all of our community to watch, but seeing that Gowings is actually running the project, I would think it'd be more appropriate that we check with them regarding dates first. Would that be correct? What would you think?
Yeah, it is on. Yeah, it's certainly, I think, wise to be in sync with Gowings on this, and certainly in relation to B, recruitment of cinema from the 7th of September being that specific, when Mr Dell made it clear yesterday he's already recruited the manager for it already. So recruitment's already started. So I think I'd be cautious about being that specific.
I'll ask a question. Yeah, I'd like to ask a question if I can. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did not Kieran say it was likely to be, but it wasn't set in stone? So I'm just asking whether, in fact, it would be appropriate for us to then, in a motion, make it appear that it was a mandated date that had been set in stone. I mean, I thought he was just giving us a feel for the progression of time. Could you confirm whether that's how you heard it, or whether he actually confirmed those dates as basically set in stone dates? That wasn't the impression I got from the conversational nature that we had at the forum.
We'd be dealing with a construction project, and all we need is a major windstorm to come through, or a week of constant rain or something like that, and dates move. Having wording such as an anticipated opening in mid-November is vague enough to actually move around that. It's anticipated. It's in mid-November. It's not saying whether it's the second week, third week, those sorts of things. But having something as specific as 7th September, it might be more generally that acknowledging that they're looking to recruit local people to help with the operations of the facility. Something like that, because like I said, they've already started the recruitment in actually getting their manager and that underway. So,
Councillor Morris, would you like to speak for your amendment?
I'd like to make a change to my amendment.
That's actually around the wrong way. On our screens,
It's
it was a movement
Morris
by Councillor Morris.
Given the discussion, I'd like to make a change, and that is that to be read that a manager for the cinema has already been recruited and staff to operate, and it is intended to commence recruitment for staff to operate the cinema from early September. I take out the 7th of September, even though Mr Dell did specifically mention the 7th of September.
Would you like to speak for your amendment?
I'll speak for my amendment.
Seconder agree, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It was clear that Mr Dell made those comments prior to questions being asked by councillors, so he wasn't prompted to give any of that information. He is in charge of the cinema operating company, so therefore I think it is reasonable that the community is aware of where the cinema operator is tracking, who you would think would be talking to the builder of the facility to be able to have that information to present. At the same time, that information is available to the public via the webcast of the public forum session. So it's public information anyway, and it wasn't given to councillors in a closed session. It was given to council in a session that was open to the public. All that we are doing is making it so that the public has more ability to catch on to the fact of what was stated and where it is at. And in addition to that, I'd like to make a further change, and that is point 3, and that is that council in conjunction or council with consent from Gowings, the developer, and Majestic, the proposed cinema operator, provide regular updates to the community on the completion of the cinema, or on the progress being made at the cinema.
Okay, if we could just switch our lights off, I've got the people.
Here we go.
on.
Yep.
Yep.
Just in relation to that point 3, we can't direct them. It's actually their project. It's actually up to. Yeah.
Okay, do I have a speaker against, or are they questions? Okay, Councillor Horville, question?
Speaker against.
Yeah, question, Councillor Horville? As long as it's a question.
Right, I'm just wondering whether the council staff or the general manager is aware of some concerns that have been put about.
Question?
My question is, are you aware of the concerns being put about that the engineering for the foundations are not strong enough to support the cinema complex, and how should council address this concern?
Councillors.
I don't know whether it's a nice try, Councillor McGinn. It's a concern out there, and I look at it and say it's a great, strong foundation. But
sorry, we're not debating. We're just asking
the
question.
My question is, how are we going to deal with that very poor perception of the builders?
Council hasn't heard that.
Point of order. There is no poor perception of the builders.
By 5 people.
I'll just get the general manager to.
Council has heard nothing of that type at all. Anyone who is actually putting that in the public arena needs to be very, very careful of what they're saying. And I would suggest to all the councillors, if you hear that, you dispel that immediately. The cinema's being built by very, very reputable local builders. The engineering is actually being done, obviously, by highly qualified engineers and has been certified. So there is no reason to raise that as an issue in any sort of forum other than to kill it, because it is totally inappropriate for anyone to be floating those sorts of ideas around our community.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I agree with you. On page 20, and I just don't understand this, so I'm sure someone will explain. In the fourth paragraph, it talks about the curtain wall is due to be delivered to the site in early August. What is a curtain wall?
It's a core part of the fabric of the building. As I understand it, it relates to where the screens are, and the wall, it may be one of their main walls for an actual facility for the larger cinema would be my guess about what it is. It's the glass wall. It's the fire one, probably. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So there we go. It's actually the curtain wall is actually the glass around the outside of the fascia, the facade.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak against the amendment on the basis that this is a report from Director Mitchell, and it's a very good report. And I realise Councillor Morris is happy with what the public speaker told us yesterday about the opening of the cinema, the recruitment of staff. I think that's wonderful news. I would recommend to Councillor Morris that this could have been a rhetorical question without notice at the end of the meeting, that the council seek confirmation that the cinema is opening X, and that the confirmation that, and that would achieve the same effect as you just said, Councillor. You want the public to know the good news, and I would suggest you make that a question without notice at the end of this meeting, which will give it just as much publicity. But I would, in deference to the director, leave his report as it is. And this could easily be could the council seek to confirm point 1 and point 2 as a questions without notice? Thank you.
Do I have a speaker against?
Sorry,
for, sorry.
Can I move a further amendment?
Yes. Have to be a foreshadowed.
Foreshadowed amendment.
I had the intention that the first point still be there, that'd be point 2. So point 1 be that council notes the report, as it notes the information be noted, and point 2 be that additional one.
A foreshadowed motion?
Part of it was what Councillor Morris said, but there is a continuation. So point 1, that the information be noted. Point 2, that Council notes the presentation by Mr Kieran Dell of Majestic Cinemas on the public forum of the 15th July 2019. And point 3, that Council liaise with Gowings and Majestic regarding a joint media release about the progress of the Kempsey Cinema.
Yeah.
Can I have a question on that amendment? Even though I'm for
I
it.
need a seconder. No, you
No,
don't.
no,
Sorry, I
it's
don't
a
need a seconder.
foreshadowed
That's right.
motion.
Yes, it's correct. Sorry.
A question on the foreshadowed motion? Amendment?
It's got to be of,
The present amendment.
yeah.
Do
So
you
can I
not
speak
think
for,
Majestic
please?
Cinemas and Gowings already have a plan for their opening dates and opening schedule for this cinema complex? And will council be part of that or try to lead that? But we must not be leading that, we should be part of it. So we should leave it up to those guys.
Yes. We're talking about the amendment currently. So we need a speaker for the amendment.
Can we put the amendment?
Not yet. We need a 2 for, 2 against.
I don't think you're going to get 2 for, 2 against, so I'll
Oh.
also support that we put the amendment.
I haven't spoken for it yet.
I'll let Councillor Horville speak for.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Welcome to the world of democracy. I will
Point of order.
disagree with Councillor Baxter in that putting a question on notice or question without notice, he said, would be putting it further out there. This will be recorded as the minutes of this meeting, and the facts are already presented by having this amendment upheld by the majority. The fact that we've got these great news about the cinema, that the opening date will be mid-October, around mid-October, and that the manager's already been appointed and the recruitment for local people will be happening in cinema in September. Those are positive things that we will be putting out as part of this report. And putting out positive news is what we should be doing with the cinema.
I've had a procedural motion to put the amendment. It's the amendment. And I have a seconder. So all in favour of putting the amendment? That's correct. Putting the amendment? That's, yes. That is carried. So all in favour of the amendment? All against? That is lost. The foreshadowed motion now becomes the amendment, and it's seconded by Councillor Morris. Would you like to speak for?
I'd like to close it if possible.
Not if somebody wants to speak against it.
I think we've turned a really simple concept into a complex task here. Councillors, well done yet again. I think we have to stop micromanaging a project that is actually the Gowings project in conjunction with Majestic Cinemas. Just as we have communication staff that run our organisation and we have communication plans, I assume that these organisations have the same. Let's not belittle them, let's not do their job, let's work together with them, let's talk with them, let's have some sort of joint media release, or let's work on this together rather than stating now what they should be doing.
Do I have a speaker against the foreshadowed?
Are we allowed to ask a question?
You can ask a question, but it might lead to more speakers.
I'd like to ask a question.
You can ask the question.
Possibly.
Microphone, please.
The question I'd like to ask is, for the record, what is the amount expended on the project up to date?
From?
I know. Councils.
By who? Us or?
Expended. Do anyone?
No, we'll take that on notice. We don't have the numbers with us.
Okay.
We'd have to look at the last progress claim.
My next question was, even though that one you'd take on notice, I would do that. The questions not on notice at the end. And the other question would be, what amount of these monies expended on the project have filtered into our community, resulting in jobs and secure employment? That was my other question.
We'll take that on notice.
Okay. There's no speakers against. We will put the foreshadowed motion. That's now the amendment, sorry. Yes, that's the amendment. So all in favour of the amendment? Yeah, not yet. So the amendment is carried, which now becomes the motion. So all in favour of the motion? There's none against, it's carried. We will now move on to 9.8, Planning Proposal 600, Macleay Valley Way, South Kempsey. Do I have a mover?
Move that one.
Move Councillor Patterson.
Second that.
Councillor Saul. Councillor Patterson, would you like to speak for?
I do understand. I do understand these projects would be a positive for our Macleay Valley with employment, and also help putting our area on the radar for customers to come off the highway and venture into our Macleay. I think the project should go ahead.
Any speakers against? Councillor Horville?
Yes, I'm opposing the motion, Mr Chair, on a number of reasons. And the first one is the advice from the RMS. The letter from the RMS dated the 18th of December 2018 actually states, the first dot point on the first page, the proposal does not appear consistent with the intent of the Minister's local planning direction, where a service centre and so forth. So it's not consistent with what the Minister is directing. Interestingly, the second letter dated the 21st of June, on the second page at the top, states, following review of this submission, Roads and Maritime is unable to support the amended layout as the proposed side ingress is located immediately downstream of the roundabout. It is likely to result in vehicles queuing into the interchange with subsequent safety implications of vehicles entering the interchange from the Pacific Highway. I'm just wondering, is it possible, Mr. Chair, through you, that the aerial view of the intersection that's contained in the report could be put up so I could point out a couple of items that
Sure.
I find interesting. And while that's coming up, I'd just like you to, and this is what we do as council, we've got to envisage the worst case scenario, that both these projects go ahead, one gets more things happening and it is completed and the other one isn't. And it just sits there with the owners going into receivership, and we've got bits of concrete and part buildings there, and that's right at the entrance to Kempsey, the southern entrance. So, now there's another one, Mrs. Thorogood, which shows the 3 areas, including the present one. It's outlined in different colours. The reason I want to bring it up is to point out the different areas and the suggested changes. In the report, it talks about the necessity of giving, that's the one, it talks about the necessity of giving drivers coming off the roundabout at least 150 metres before they enter the service centre. Now, the first one that's in red up there is the one that's under discussion, 600. The one in green is 556, and it has an entrance halfway along. So it's a bigger area, and the actual design for the second one gives much more access and easier access to B doubles, and that's an important component of the operation of the service centre. You will see that the red area is actually less than the yellow area of the present service centre, which has got lots of space to drive around. When you drive into that service centre, you have easy access to parking, to getting petrol, to parking around the back, giving your dog a run in the free play area. All those things are in that because of it's a massive area. The red area up there is much less. It looks about 2/3 of the yellow area, and of course the green area is even larger. So to me, there are a couple of things. We've got RMS saying that there are issues with the red one, 600. They have issues, and it's come out in their letters to us that we've received. The second one has better access, and both of them provide access for traffic going north. They pull off, go through the roundabout, and they have to go to either one of them. The one that's safer to go to is the green one. So for me, I don't think this should be proceeded with, because we're going possibly, and we heard from the speakers in the public forum yesterday, they both want to get started soon and have it up and running before next year. We could have, if we approve this, we'll have a competition between 2 of them to get it up and running. One of them will fall by the side, and we'll possibly be left with a white elephant on one of those blocks, and I don't know which one. So, to me,
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. That's your 5 minutes.
I've got a minute left, haven't I?
That is your 5 minutes.
Oh, I didn't get any warning bells. Sorry. Yeah, I oppose it for those reasons I've already mentioned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
A response from staff?
Yeah, through the chair, just in response to a couple of the points raised by Councillor Horville, RMS issued the revised response on the 21st of June, which was the final attachment to the council report. That's obviously subsequent to their initial response to the proposal. Within that response, they provide commentary on a variety of matters, and they do, acknowledging what Councillor Horville has stated, they do raise concern in terms of the the proposal as it stands at the moment in terms of the proximity of the entrance to the roundabout. Those things, I guess the detail of that can be resolved certainly through the DA process, and the RMS letter alludes to a further traffic impact assessment occurring, and obviously if the planning proposal progresses, that would need to be done through the DA process in collaboration with RMS. So it's certainly believed that those matters would be able to be resolved through the design of the site. I'd also add that in terms of the, I guess the RMS's comment of whether the site is suitable for a service centre, I'll just read one paragraph from their 21st of June letter. And they state that we note that the South Kempsey interchange is a permissible location for a highway service centre development, that the interchange has sufficient capacity to accommodate a highway service centre development accessing the western roundabout, subject to further detailed design to mitigate the impacts of the development as discussed above. Therefore, the use of the site can be safely and efficiently integrated into the interchange for the purposes of the Minister's direction. So RMS have obviously provided that commentary. The other thing of relevance is that in terms of, I guess, viability of the site and potential competition, what Council's considering today is the strategic use of the parcel of the land, not whether the proposal is viable or not. I guess Council needs to be comfortable that the key constraints can be overcome and managed, and that the site can be serviced. But the discussion today is about the appropriateness of the land use, not the viability of the various proposals.
Councillor Saul.
I'm speaking for the motion.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we should be thinking a big picture. This is a chance here for our unemployed to gain employment. This is a chance for business to increase for our valley. Mr. Chairman, yesterday the Speaker said 200 plus jobs could happen from this development. That, perhaps the next one as well. The thing is, this creates employment for those who don't have qualifications or degrees for other activities. If we were to rule things out, we're going to, again, keep our unemployment high, and those who want work can't get enough hours. This is an opportunity where they can gain meaningful employment.
Do I have any more speakers against? Councillor Morris?
I've got a couple of questions first.
Sure.
The questions are, if this planning proposal doesn't proceed, what is the current land use provision? What can the land currently be used for? What's its current zoning and what can it be used for if it doesn't proceed and get approved as a highway service?
Director Fish?
Through the Chair, the current zoning of the land is RU2 rural landscape. So obviously that is the intent of the site. Within the planning proposal, there is a list of all the uses from memory at the moment. I'd need to clarify that versus the LEP, but I think, as I said, it's an RU2 rural landscape zone, and a service centre is obviously prohibited in that use as it stands at the moment, hence the need for the planning proposal.
But the use is fairly extensive anyway, so there would be a reasonably broad range of activities.
There would certainly be other uses that would be permissible, that's for sure.
Yeah. Assuming this is approved today, what's the process from here? There is obviously still a DA required, but what is the general process that you would expect from, if this was approved today or resolved in accordance with the resolution today, what would be the process that you would see going forward?
Yep, through the Chair. I guess the process is somewhat outlined in the recommendation in terms of the plan making process to make the amendment to the LEP.
But beyond that?
In connection with that would be a development of a voluntary planning agreement regarding the servicing of the site. Following that, obviously the making of the plan, that would then permit obviously the submission of a DA and the associated studies, etc., that would need to come with that, and Council would then obviously assess that.
Okay. Given that that the North Coast Plan 2036, or the Minister's direction, allows 2 highway service centres, and RMS's guidelines are that they be permissible for 2 service centres at the western interchange of Kempsey, or at South Kempsey. What is the chances of the RMS, or would we be complying with the Minister's direction if a DA for this site was subsequently approved when there currently is a service centre and there is a DA that is current which has, for all intensive purposes, achieved practical commencement? Would there be a requirement to extinguish the previous DA that's been approved, or would it be likely to be approved with a second DA already there?
Through the chair, the local planning direction for at number 5.4, I guess stipulates is commercial and retail development along the Pacific Highway North Coast. It specifically identifies the southern interchange at Kempsey within that. I'm not aware that it specifically stipulates anything regarding the number of service centres. So we're certainly of our belief that we are, or that the planning proposal is in compliance with that local planning direction.
I'd just add as well, if RMS had concerns, they would have raised those by now.
No close debate.
No, you're still
asking
going.
questions, and I wish to speak against it when I've concluded asking my questions.
Okay, let's go.
Councillor Patterson. So what we're saying is that there would be no restriction on having a third DA approved for that site.
We're not aware of any.
Okay. The other question too is, would it be reasonable, and I know that the recommendation is that we have the VPA executed prior to the making of the plan, should that VPA be conditional on the DA being approved, or would it be recommended or worthy of putting a clause in there that the VPA, whilst is a legally binding document prior to making of the plan, the payments attributed to that would only be made legally binding in the event of the DA being approved? Because the VPA is going to be generated on the assumption that the service centre is going to be built on making of the plan to allow a service centre to be built. But the making of that plan doesn't assume that the DA is going to be approved. So would such a clause be included in the VPA to protect the person that's made this request for the rezoning, or would it be assumed that he would be liable to, or that organisation would be liable for the payment of the fees and charges, or the charges within the VPA, regardless of whether the DA proceeds or not?
Yeah, through the chair, that would come down to the specifics of I guess what's negotiated in the VPA. I guess we could obviously take the point you're making on board in that regard.
Yeah.
And another question on, it was alluded to last night by one of the speakers that this particular proposal is putting in jeopardy them being able to source funding and so forth. Could that potentially lead or leave council open to potential litigation if this does proceed?
We don't believe it will.
Okay.
Would you like to speak?
Mr. Chair, I think my questions highlight my concerns. My concern is that
So you're speaking against...
my concern is that there are issues with the third site that still need to be addressed, but we have got a DA that is currently approved, and it was indicated by the speaker yesterday that their plan is to have that DA or that work completed in time for them to operate by the end of next year, which is consistent with the time frame that council will be providing the sewerage infrastructure to the site, which in my opinion is an essential component to allow that service centre to operate in an efficient and an effective manner. So council's provision of infrastructure is, if anything, what is holding up the progression of the DA that we currently have approved.
Director Fish?
Just through the chair, just make a comment in regarding the provision of sewer infrastructure. I'd just like to note that the current approved DA on the adjacent site, given that was obviously from 2015 incorporated on-site sewage management, so there is an approved DA with a way forward in terms of sewage infrastructure for the site. Obviously, there is, with the provision of a reticulated system for the site, would you potentially allow for amendment of that?
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Just speaking for the motion, I'd just like to highlight to everyone what a pleasant change this is to have our valley suffering the problem of investors pushing in, and we've got people getting stuck in the door. So the fact that these investors are both competing or wanting to build their service centre, I'd like to remind everyone what we've been told over the last couple of months about the 30-year planning, this long-term strategic planning we're talking about. I'd like to highlight for everybody the fact that over the next 30 years and the increase in population, increase in volumes of traffic, I can't see any problem with two service centres there. Councillor Horville highlights the fact that the Green Service Centre there has ample room for B doubles and all the rest of it. And I can't see any problem with people sharing the profits of the hundreds of thousands of trucks and traffic that go up and down this coast, which will only double. I would say the volume will double in a certain amount of time. And I think, for us to open up our doors to any amount of investment is a good thing. And that, as Councillor Saul says, the Valley desperately needs this investment spending. Thank you.
Do I have any other speakers against? No. Okay, I put the motion. All in. Oh, sorry, right of reply. Sorry. Councillor Patterson.
Yeah. Okay. Just speaking.
Sorry, would you like the right of reply?
Yes, please. Yeah. Just speaking for the motion, obviously, what we need to realise too, that us as council here, we're looking at site 600. That's what this is about, not site 556. The market demand will work out if two sites will work and go ahead on the western side. 600 has secured petrol outlet and 2 drive-through food outlets. We'll be up to 200 plus jobs for this site. This project will be another benefit to our community, tourism and jobs, and putting the Macleay, Kempsey on the map for travelling, also the industrial centre that is adjacent to this site. So I put the motion.
So I'll put the motion. All in favour? All against? That's carried. We'll now move to number 10, no questions with notice, or questions on notice. 10.1, Councillor Patterson. You're right. We might swing the other way. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. One question. In anticipation of the opening of the cinema complex later this year, is the council addressing improved lighting around the building and CCTV coverage of the area?
Thank you. No questions? No questions? Councillor Horville.
Yes, ask a question.
Sure.
Thank you. I've sent these through to Mr. Thorogood. First one, as it is an appropriate expectation that the minutes of regional organisational council meetings be forwarded to councillors, when will this occur? Next question, why were the advanced plans for redevelopment of the Civic Centre and South West Rocks Library presented to the New South Wales State Library team on the 4th of June 2019, but not presented to councillors at the General Manager's briefing on the 3rd of July? So I need to correct that in my Both of them are July's, Mr. Thorogood. I've put June. Okay. With reference to the resolution 2017-171 on the 16th of May 2017, Kempsey Council Sale Yard Review, which in the Matters in Progress report, 15th of May 2018, stated that this item is addressed in this business paper, the Sale Yard Strategic Options. Where is the report that dealt with animal welfare, as it is not found in the options paper for the sale yards? Next question. With reference to the resolution 2017-171, 16th of May 2017, Kempsey Council Sale Yards Review, which in the Matters in Progress report, 15th of May 2018, stated that this item addressed is within this business paper, Sale Yard Strategic Options. Where is the report that dealt with compliance of the present users with their licences, as it is not found in the options paper for the sale yards? Next one. With the damning legal advice that fluoridation of water is most certainly illegal from the senior counsel contracted by Port Macquarie Hastings Council, and that council's decision to escalate the advice to the New South Wales Health, Australian Local Government Association and Local Government New South Wales, will council staff consider the possible implications, including financial and legal, and the need to hold off on expenditure to install fluoridation equipment in the Shire's water supply? Next question. With reference to 15.2 on the 17th of April 2018, where the required report was included and finalised in the Matters in Progress report on the 15th of August 2018, what were the assessed capital cost of installing CCTV at the Kempsey Airport to monitor usage? Next question. With reference to 15.2 of the 17th of April 2018, where the required report was included and finalised in the Matters in Progress report of the 15th of August 2018, why were CCTV cameras not able to be pointed at the main runway to record aircraft movements? Next question. How many animals A, have died, or B, been injured at Kempsey Regional Sale Yards in the financial years 2016-17, 2017-18 and 2018-19? Final question. In regard to parking outside Kempsey District Hospital, and as there have been no discussions with New South Wales Health, as committed to in the letter of the 20th of June 2018 letter from the Health Minister, will Council initiate a collaborative meeting with New South Wales Health in the interest of visitors parking at our Kempsey Shire Communities Hospital?
Thank you. Councillor McGinn. Councillor Morris.
I likewise have forwarded them through to Manager Thorogood. There are a couple of minor changes which I'll highlight to him after I read them out. First question, given the fact that the agreement between Council and the Australian International Aviation College for the use of Kempsey Airport was not extended and subsequently expired on the 30th of June, given the comments by Council staff that IAC will now be liable for full charges in accordance with Council's fees and charges, what is the anticipated increase in income from airport movement charges resulting from AIAC activities? Question 2. Council's long-term financial plan only provides a high-level consolidated projection of income, expenditure and depreciation. What is the projected income, expenditure and depreciation for the Kempsey Airport for the 10-year period of the long-term financial plan? Next question. Who has ultimate responsibility to determine whether a staff report, A, should be presented to Council for consideration, and B, that the report provides all relevant information to allow councillors to make an informed decision? Question 4. The draft fees and charges as resolved to be placed on public exhibition at its meeting on the 16th of April 2019 included 2 additional items compared to previous years under the aircraft movement charges section. These items related to airport user charges annual commercial purposes and airport user charges annual private purposes. What was the rationale to add these items to the fees and charges? And what was the methodology used to determine the proposed fee? Next question. The additional charges included in the draft fees and charges, as outlined in question 4, were deleted as a result of a staff review. What was the reason for the removal of these items? Should the removal of such items be contingent on a further period of public consultation? My final question is the fees and charges document adopted by Council on the 26th of June had practice approaches added as being exempt from aircraft movement charges. What is the definition of a practice approach? Why was this change made from the draft placed on public exhibition and the change not mentioned in the body of the report to Council on item 9.3?
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
So, two small questions. What is the total expenditure to date on the cinema complex by Kempsey Council? What % of the expenditure would have filtered into the community, re-jobs, etc.?
Councillor Saul, you thought of a question?
Well, perhaps, Mr Chairman, I just wanted to respond to Councillor Baxter's question.
No, you cannot. Sorry.
Okay. Then I reserve a question for confidential, please.
There is no confidential today. We've already done that.
Oh, okay. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Talk to people afterwards. Okay. Councillor Hall, your light's on? No?
No, it's on by error as
Okay.
per usual. I apologise.
No worries.
Mr. Chair.
So that concludes our meeting for today. Thank you very much. There is morning tea. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you to the public. Morning tea's there if anybody would like any. Thank you.